The hot topic on the lips of every conservative Christian is cancel culture. I don't have an issue with people critiquing so-called cancel culture because there's different levels to it. For example, I don't know any decent person who doesn't think Harvey Weinstein shouldn't have been canceled. However, sometimes good people get canceled for no reason. A prime example is the rumor that Tommy Hilfiger didn't want black people wearing his clothes. That baseless rumor emerged when I was just a kid, and many people still believe it to this day, unfortunately.
I'll finish. It was also said that you didn't like the way hip hop was wearing your clothing because back then everything was big and fitted and you made things for elite white people, is what it said.
Well, when I started my brand, I was 18 years old and we opened a shop called People's Place. It was for the people. I've always wanted my brand to be offered to a broad range of people, everybody.
All cancellations are not equal, but I'm not here to discuss who should and shouldn't be canceled. I'm here to talk about how Christians pretend that they've always been about freedom of speech and freedom of expression. In today's culture, those who care about social justice are criticized so heavily that caring about social justice now carries negative connotations. But what about culture warriors? The Oxford Dictionary describes a culture warrior as a person who is active in trying to protect a particular set of values that they think is under threat, especially political conservative values in the US. The culture warriors were fervently opposed to rock music.
You know, like 60 years ago, rock and roll was considered the devil's music. Now there's Christian rock. Well, what the hell happened there? What, if we wait long enough, they just join in? What's next? 20 years from now? Hey, Christian gay porn.
These men come down here from New York and from Florida to find out my reasons on rock and roll music and why I preach against it, and I believe with all of my heart that it is a contributing factor to our juvenile delinquency of today. I 100% believe it. Why I believe that is because I know how it feels when you sing it. I know what it does to you. And I know the evil feeling that you feel when you sing it. I know the lost position that you get into in the beat. Well, if you talk to the average teenager of today and you ask them what it is about rock and roll music that they like, and the first thing they'll say is the beat, the beat, the beat.
In the 21st century, rock and roll music is inseparable from white American culture. When we think of rock legends, we think of Elvis Presley, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, AC/DC, the Doors. However, the early opponents of rock and roll referred to it as jungle music, voodoo music, Negro music, the devil's music, and these were the nicer names they used for rock.
We've set up a 20-man committee to do away with this vulgar, animalistic, nigger rock and roll bop.
The obscenity and vulgarity of the rock and roll music is obviously a means by which the white man and his children can be driven to the level with the nigger. It is obviously nigger music.
There were black Christians who disapproved of rock music as well, just as there are black Christians who disapprove of rap music today. For many white conservative Christians, however, there was a racial and religious element to their attacks on rock and roll. Listening to rock music wasn't just an innocent form of teenage rebellion, it was a foreign and dangerous enemy that threatened the very fabric of white Christian society. It reminds me of a recent example of similar concerns in the 21st century.
But you have these kids learning about critical race theory. They're learning that they should aspire to people like Cardi B. That you see that fundamentally we are seeing the destruction of American values, American principles. And it's terrifying. I think parents should be terrified that this is the direction that our society is heading towards. And again, we are weakening America. That's really what we should be talking about. This is a weakening of American society. We are setting the stage and it feels like we are looking at corrosion, like we are about to see the end of an empire. America cannot survive. It cannot be sustained under these sorts of values and principles.
The Beatles need no introduction. They're one of the most iconic bands of all time, loved by millions around the globe. However, there was a time when the Beatles pissed off conservative Christians after a comment from John Lennon was published in July of 1966. Lennon said, "Christianity will go. It will vanish and shrink. I needn't argue about that. I know I'm right. were more popular than Jesus now. Although Lenin was speaking in terms of his own country, where Christianity was heavily on the decline and continues to decline today, conservatives were in an uproar. They banned the Beatles on radio stations across the country.
Tommy, you're quoted as saying that though you're 36, you think like a teenager. Did you find your teenage listeners backed you up on your stand?
They did. For 3 hours, our 3 phone lines lit up, and they responded, and they said, get rid of the Beatles, ban the records, let's burn them or do something with them. And we acted, of course, on our own convictions, but we were backed up by the people, especially the younger people of this area.
They even organized record burnings.
But are you burning your Beatles records?
Yes, sir, I burn them.
You burned them all yourself?
I've already burned them.
How did you do it? I mean, where? How?
Well, our Sunday school at MYF, we had a program about the Beatles, and we have supper at MYF, and it was in our backyard. So after we'd finished cooking the hot dogs, I just put my records on there.
Most frightening of all for the Beatles were the death threats that they received from Christians.
The Beatles made a statement in all the newspapers that they're getting more better than Jesus himself, and the Ku Klux Klan, being a religious order, is going to come out here the night that they appear at the Coliseum here, and we're going to demonstrate with different ways and tactics to stop this performance. The Klan is going to come out here because we're the only organization that will come out and make a stop to these accusations. This is nothing but blasphemy, and we're going to try to stop it any terror way we can, but it's going to stop. We're known as a terror organization. I think we have
a terror organization.
We have ways and means to stop this if this is going to be the case. Yes.
What ways and means?
Well, I don't want to say this, but there'll be a lot of surprises Monday night, I believe, when they get here.
Brian Epstein, the manager for the Beatles, was so afraid that one of them would get killed, he offered to pay $1 million out of his own pocket to cancel their last 1966 US tour. He said that if something happened to one of them, he'd never be able to forgive himself. Fortunately, the Beatles survived America's Bible Belt unscathed. The Wonderful Wizard of Oz is one of the most beloved books of all time. Besides bringing joy to children in America and around the world, Baum's story has influenced and inspired modern literature such as Gregory Maguire's Wicked series and Danielle Page's Dorothy Must Die series. It's hard to imagine anyone not liking The Wizard of Oz, except maybe conservative Christians.
The TV is a great tool, but it's also a great weapon against God's people. There's been more perversion. There's been subtleties that have come through. Some of our most beloved movies in all of history are full of wickedness and actually mocking God. You look at movies that, I mean, everybody's seen. You look at The Wizard of Oz. The Wizard of Oz is one of the most God-hating movies that there is. It is one of the worst movies ever made in all of history. And you go, oh, because there's a witch in it. The witch is the least of our problems. You start off with the young little rebellious girl, and then you look at Oz, the great and powerful Oz. And then the little dog is the only one smart enough to finally figure out that it's that same fake that we met before, the snake oil salesman. And he's just a stinking fake, and he's the one pulling all. Oz is not real. Oz represents God, and that snake oil salesman represents the preacher. He's the one pulling all the strings. He's the only thing scary about God. Why would God be scary? And really, he can't do anything. And you know, in the end, isn't it a sweet message that you could just click your heels? The answer was inside you all along. You never needed God. You never needed to follow a yellow brick road. You don't need to go to heaven. You don't need to go to a yellow... No! But see, it's one of the most beloved movies in all of history. And we all know all the songs, you know exactly all the way through. You don't need to go to Oz for courage. You're already... You've got all the courage inside you already. You don't have to go to Oz for wisdom. You already figure it out. How can you be, look, your heart's all messed up. What do you mean? You don't need to go to Oz to get your heart right. You're one of the most compassionate people around. The author of the book and the makers of the movie are some of the biggest God haters that have ever lived. They were just a lot more covert back then. They are very overt now.
Early critics of the classic viewed it as ungodly because the hero and main character of the story is a girl, which in their eyes blurred gender roles. Conservative Christians of the time believed that Dorothy should have been at home on the farm, learning skills that would make her a good housewife, like Aunt Em, not traveling to a fantasy world to liberate enslaved people. In 1986, several conservative Christian families in Tennessee filed a lawsuit to get the Oz books removed from public schools. One of the main reasons they wanted the books removed is because it promotes the idea that some witches can be good, as opposed to the Bible, which states that all witches should be put to death. Rather than have the books removed from schools, the presiding judge ruled that children could be excused from lessons revolving around the Oz books. Unsatisfied with this ruling, the parents appealed to the United States Supreme Court, but the court refused to hear the case.
Oh, rubbish! You have no power here. Be gone.
In recent times, both leftists and right-wingers are burning Harry Potter books. In Harry's early days, however, he was a prime target of ultra-conservative Christians, and according to the American Library Association, the Harry Potter books are the most challenged series of the 21st century. In 2002, the Cedarville School District in Crawford County, Arkansas removed all of the Harry Potter books from the shelves and made them available to students only if they had written permission from a parent or legal guardian. The assault on Harry Potter started when a pastor named Mark Hodges gave a fiery sermon about the evils of the Harry Potter series. A member of his church named Angie Haney was inspired by his sermon, and she helped to get the books removed, insisting that the books not only encourage children to practice witchcraft, but that they encourage children to be rule breakers, like Harry and his friends.
Why is it when something happens, it is always you three?
Believe me, Professor, I've been asking myself the same question for 6 years.
Arkansas may be in the Bible Belt, but not every family was happy about the decision to remove the books. One such family, the Counces, decided to do something about it. They hired a lawyer named Brian Metters, a passionate man with a disdain for censorship. Metters was successful in the courtroom, and Judge Jim Larry Hendren overruled the Harry Potter ban, restoring the books to Cedarville libraries. Opposition to Harry Potter books by Christians has never stopped, and probably never will. Like the Potter series, Disney has been under attack from Christians for a long time, mainly because of its support of the LGBTQ community and moments in Disney films that are just too blatantly gay for Christians.
Still 40, but I will throw in a visit to Okansana. Woohoo! Hi, family! Woohoo!
In 2005, a conservative Christian organization called the American Family Association, also known as the AFA, ended a 9-year boycott of Disney. The AFA's president, Tim Wildman, explained that the organization was ending the boycott because of what they perceived as Disney's improvement in regards to its arrogance and acceptance of homosexuality. This claim makes no sense because the same year that the AFA ended its boycott, Disney celebrated its 15th Gay Day at Disney World in Florida. Doug Swallow, the founder of Gay Day, said, "Why are they announcing the end of a boycott that can only be characterized as unknown and certainly not effective?" That's a good question, but considering that Christians, like many other religious groups, believe that prayer actually works, it's not surprising that the ineffectiveness didn't stop them from viewing the boycott as a victory.